Bill Easterton promised a future Labour government would reform the system for business rates. That was earlier on this month. At the moment, high street shops end up paying much more than online companies. It's a factor in the closure of many shops and companies. Well, today the minister in charge of looking after high streets is in Darwin in East Lancashire. He's there to promote a new government-backed campaign to encourage more people to shop locally. And our reporter Samantha Fennick is in Darwin with him. Sam.
I'm in Darwin Market with the Minister. Now, Darwin Market opened in 1871. It's a traditional market. It's a deli counter, a butcher's, a haberdashery, but also a few empty units as well. And as you say, I'm here with Jake Berry, the High Street Minister, because he wants more people to shop in markets like this, because you think it's going to help local high streets.
Absolutely, Sam, and I was really pleased to welcome you here to Darwin. What we have to remember about our markets is they are the first ever social network our world has ever known, and that's why they should be at the heart of our market towns and of course of our high streets. Because if we talk about the great challenges ahead of competing with online retail, I just want everyone to think, I was almost given a hug when I came into this market by one of my friends who works here, and you cannot get a hug online. Markets are intensely social, and in fact they, like the future of retail, are about that retail experience rather than just buying things that can never be replicated on the internet.
You've also launched the Great British High Street competition.
Well, we're hugely excited about this year's Great British High Street. It's about celebrating everything that is fantastic about the Great British High Street. I think in terms of our community and in terms of our business life, our high streets are some of this nation's finest assets, and I hope all of your listeners will go online, have a look at the Great British High Street website and find out how they can enter their own high street, which I'm sure they, like me, are intensely proud of, to be part of this exciting competition.
Some people listening to this might think that there is a crisis on the high street, that shops are closing. The British Retail Consortium have said that 2,000 shops have closed this year alone. House of Fraser are closing, Debenhams are closing stores, Marks and Spencer's are closing stores. These initiatives that the government has come up with seem a bit small beer compared to what's going on.
Well, I think we have to accept that retail is dynamic. It has forever been changing. Of course, none of us go to a glue merchants or tallow boilers on our high streets, because high streets, for them, change is normal. I think at the moment we are going through a rapid period of change, which is why the Great British High Street competition isn't the only thing the government is doing. We're having an expert-led call for evidence, which is not just actually about those retailers, it's about the people from our high streets and who shop on our high streets, coming to government and saying, actually, the future of the high street should look like X or Y. I wouldn't prejudge the call for evidence. But my own personal view is experiential retail, the idea of bringing houses, gyms, daycare, nurseries into the heart of the high street to bring the people back, is the future of the Great British High Street.
What about business rates? Earlier in the week we heard from the chief executive of Beals, one of the largest department stores in the UK. He said that business rates were ludicrous. Countless retailers have been saying that business rates need reforming. The government has been promising us reform, but has never quite delivered on that. What are you going to do about business rates?
Well, first of all, we've seen quite a lot of change already, and if you go around Darwin Market where we are today, a lot of the store holders here won't pay any business rates whatsoever, because back in 2016 we doubled the small business rate relief. We've also moving from an RPI increase on business rates to a CPI increase, which is a complicated way of saying that they shouldn't go up as quickly in future. But the last thing is we obviously have a manifesto commitment from the Conservative government to have a review of business rates and how they interact with our modern economy. And while those are decisions for the Treasury and will be made at the budget, I hope that we will come forward and deliver on that review.
The way that business rates are at the moment, they're simply not fair. The people who have bricks and mortar stores pay more than those who are online with big warehouses out of town. How do you redress that balance?
Well, I think we'd have to redress that as part of this review. Retail is changing, and as you say, business rates is an historic system, and businesses and business rates are changing, and I think we have to make sure that's picked up in the review. I would say, actually, I think the challenges around retail are much more complicated than business rates as well. If you think about your listeners, who are probably sat at home. I bet some of them, maybe even today, have clicked on well-known online retailers to purchase goods which they may traditionally have bought on their high street. So I think the digital technology revolution is as big a challenge, but also an opportunity for the high streets as business rates may be as well. And that's the point of this review, is to tackle all of these challenges in a coherent way.
What about the jobs that we're going to lose on the high street in retail? House of Fraser are closing 31 stores, 6,000 jobs will go. The British Retail Consortium has said that 900,000 jobs will go in the next 7 years. What are you going to do about where those people should be going and where they should be employed?
Well, in terms of closing shops, it's a mixed picture, of course. The latest figures from Barclays, which were produced, show that the number of independent retailers opening is at a record high. And in fact, some of those
The problem with independent retailers is they don't always stay open, do they? The churn of independent retailers, they often will close within 2 or 3 years.
Well, some of them, of course, will, but that's not unusual for new businesses to close. But let's not forget that all of those businesses you mentioned, House of Fraser, Marks and Spencer's, Toys R Us, started as a small business which became a big business. But, that's why we're really focused on things like the skills agenda, because there is no such thing as someone having the wrong skills. It's more of the fact that they don't have the right skills for the economy today. And if you look at the government's focus on lifetime learning, which is about making sure that as the economy changes, skills change to match that. We need to ensure that people who may have traditionally worked in the retail sector have the opportunity, yes, to go to the retail businesses, but to otherwise retrain and look at finding other jobs in our growing economy with record high employment.
Okay, thank you very much. Jake Berry, High Street Minister, for joining us today in Darwin.